I'm a little bit cautious about 2026, and that's, things going on in the market, from a micro point of view, but also a macro point of view. So unpredictable.
Yeah.
And obviously we've seen a few things happen recently that are a little bit concerning. But as a country, and what's going what's going on in Europe and the States, it's that all of that's from obviously a cause for concern, but it's not anything any of us can predict.
Welcome to the Property Funder podcast. I'm your host, Michael Dean. You can find me on the internet at property_funder. I'm here today with my good friend Adam Stiles, director and co-founder of Helix Structured Finance. Did I get that right? Yeah. Okay. How are we doing?
Yeah, good. Thank you. Thanks for having me back.
Your third time.
Indeed. I feel very spoiled.
I was just saying to Matt, our engineer off camera, that the first recording was very DIY, and it was a bit like an early days YouTube video quality of around 2006.
You've gone a long way since then.
We've moved. The setup is a little bit more pro. You did actually get the benefit of the last studio, didn't you? So
yes.
Yeah. What do you think? What do you think of the studio here?
How long have you been using this particular?
What is it? I think the first one was in. It wasn't you though, was it, Matt? I think it was Philippe. With Philippe, we were in December, so right. We're now this is our third recording session. So you're recording number 14
right,
here.
Okay.
No, my maths is off.
You've got quite a slate for the year, right?
Actually, no, that's 10. No, you're recording number 10 in here, I should say. So yeah, no, we've done well. How's business?
January was a bit of a struggle.
Yeah.
We kind of, as a team, wouldn't say we set the world alight, but February seems to be a lot better.
Yeah.
It's taken a little while to warm up. I think I was messaging you a lot. Whenever you ask me how I am, it was like I'm stressed with various deals and in different states of play. Or as I use terminology of the ICU, or with a pulse or not with a pulse.
Yeah, anyone would be confused with Adam's profession as a medical professional rather than
definitely not medical,
a specialist mortgage broker. But in terms of your general outlook for 2026 as a whole, how are you feeling about the world? More optimistic than 2025, or uncertain?
I would say cautious. I'm optimistic as a person, so there's always going to be that kind of positivity, but I'm a little bit cautious about 2026, and that's things going on in the market, from a micro point of view, but also a macro point of view. So unpredictable.
Yeah.
And obviously we've seen a few things happen recently that are a little bit concerning, but as a country, and what's going what's going on in Europe and the States, it's that all of that's from obviously a cause for concern, but it's not anything any of us can predict.
Do you think? I guess with Avamore's client base, we tend to deal with developer operators, so people who maybe are a little bit less discretionary in terms of their activities. I think that's not necessarily the case with some of your clients who maybe are a bit more opportunistic or opportunity led. I mean, how is that? Do they quote the macro situation to you, the clients, in terms of maybe wanting to slow transactions down, or is it something that sort of you pick up reading between the lines?
Yeah, I have had some pull out of development deals purely because they are worried about what the government's going to do, not now, but in the next budget, the budget after, which is a little bit worrying. To be fair, these are the same clients who say that they're not cautious, and everything they do is cautious. But, to be fair, I've seen more development deals in the last 3 months than I have probably in the last year combined, which is that's great. Whether or not they stack up at valuation is another matter.
Well, that's an interesting question. I mean, you're not the first broker that has said that to me in the last fortnight. I mean, I've heard that from multiple sources that development activity is picking up. But the point you make actually about viability is an interesting one, because actually they're saying to me, look, actually development is starting to look more viable. I still think there's challenges on the margins, but like the types of development deals that you're seeing, are they big flatted schemes, or are they more housing schemes? Are they, smaller schemes, or are they larger schemes? Like, what do they look like? And I guess the ability to stack up will be, I suppose, driven by the nature of them, right?
Yeah, look, it's very much a mixed bag. There's everything that you've just mentioned there. Whether I just think sometimes it can be like rolling a dice when it comes to valuation, but with the mix of opportunities, you've got to hope that a few of these go through. Sometimes it is just luck of the draw. But to be fair, we do a lot of legwork in terms of making sure that their numbers do stack up. Not pie in the sky. We do kick the tires and question some of their numbers. But these are serious operators. A lot of them have teams that do this sort of thing all day long. So you'd like to think that they stand a good chance.
Yeah. But notwithstanding that, I guess it is frustrating when you find that you're doing a load of work, and and I think it's the same for us as a lender. It's where we our fates are very much intertwined, and we have a good alignment, which is that if you don't make money by earning commission, we don't make money because we aren't lending money and aren't able to earn through our lending activities. So, we want to see deals go through as much as you do as brokers, right? So, we understand that pain. How do you go about pre-vetting deals at the moment, in terms of so that you don't end up becoming a busy fool? What sort of work are you able to do now to kind of get that early sense check as to whether a deal's got legs?
A lot of it comes down to experience. I've been doing this is my 19th year in the industry, so a lot of that comes as just experience. It's sometimes just by how the client's acting.
Okay,
there's a lot of red flags that can be gleaned from how they respond to questions, how much information they supply, how they supply it. If you ask for a development CV and they just write, "I've been building for 40 years," you got the measures pretty quickly as to whether that deal has legs. So you just know. You over time you get to know that's the biggest one. Then it will come down to the actual scheme itself. Is it quirky enough that someone will lend on it? Sorry, is it quirky enough that someone won't be put off? And then of course the valuation and the legals. But the first red flags come through with how the client is, 100%.
How the client interacts.
Yeah,
is sort of an element of a sense of commitment, right? Is that how throwaway is there? How throwaway are the comments? How I guess when you do your fact find, is it a case of right? Is it source trust me bro, or is it here's a detailed Excel spreadsheet with all my projects and my A&L?
Yeah, exactly. It's how professional the information is given, how quickly it is, how responsive they are. If you start questioning some things, also how they answer. You can get people that are aggressive, condescending, plaster over, they try and blag it a bit. So there's a lot of psychology that goes into the interaction.
You ask them about their adverse, and to quote Rocky, they go, "Nothing worth bragging about."
Yeah. We've seen some, as you'd imagine, some horror shows over the years. But that's as I say, there's a lot of psychology that goes into the first bits. To be fair, once you're at the lender stage, it's the professionalism steps up a bit here, because then it's just what can you supply when, and what does it look like, and then of course you've got underwriting, credit committee, valuation and legals, which that's a long path to take when you're trying to get paid at the end.
What do you think lenders can do better in the current climate to give your deals a better chance of survival, shall we say, or making it to the finish line?
That's a good question. It depends on the lender.
Sure. But maybe, what are common themes where you look back and go, do you know what, if the lender had approached the deal this way, maybe we might have
ultimately the oldest one will be not changing the goalposts. That one will always be the case. You can't say that you'll do a deal and then decline it on something you knew about at the start. And as brokers, we on the first email, we put all of the problems that we're aware of, so that we can, effectively whittle it down to what lenders will, with confidence, lend on it. And that's where sometimes we're a little bit worried about using lenders that we've not used before. Ultimately, sometimes you have to, because they're the only ones that will, can either understand the deal or have confidence or are comfortable lending on it. But you can massively get your hand bitten.
Yeah,
doing that. But also, in the same time, we've had lenders that are like, well, why haven't we been using these guys for the last 10 years?
Yeah, we talk about that. Those sort of those maybe adverse, the sort of adverse stuff that you talk about. I'm trying to just play devil's advocate here and maybe defend my fellow lending professionals. There's always that case. You send, a broker can send a shaggy dog email to, obviously not saying this is what you do, but I've seen it, obviously 10 plus years of doing this, so I've seen it more than once. You get the shaggy dog email from the broker, and buried in the shaggy dog email is, he committed mass murder or whatever, and then sort of but of course it goes to the BDM, and the BDM's obviously trying to put out terms, and you say, can you give me indicative terms as quickly as you can?
Yeah.
The BDM doesn't spot it. That email doesn't filter its way to credit, and then the underwriter does the Google search and goes,
yeah, what the hell's this?
What's this?
I think. Do you know what? Actually, when you know that there's a nuclear bomb in that email of a problem, and if there's no questions, or the BDM responds too quickly or too flippantly or too simplistically, you go straight back and go, right, drawing your attention to this, you're telling me categorically in black and white, you are okay with this issue. And then suddenly, I hadn't spotted that. Oh, right, okay, brilliant. Well, so yeah, you've got to make sure.
Now I know you do
double and triple check.
Now I know you do that, but I can assure you that there are many of your peers that don't. Yeah, so
yeah,
and that's where I think we're much better at this now. But I'd be lying if I said we never got caught out by that sort of thing. It's
human error. It's going to happen, isn't it? Yeah.
I mean, I guess in terms of technology and tools, how are you seeing the adoption of technology by brokers first and foremost, and then also lenders, to kind of make processes more predictable and more efficient?
So obviously, parts of our business is in the regulated space. So we're seeing a lot of very large lenders adopting certain types of tech. But we've been looking at moving CRM. And it's one of those ones where we've taken 18 months to decide what we're going to take, and by that point there's new tech. Well, when do we get off the merry-go-round of actually picking one? Because as soon as we pick one, there's going to be something that's better out there.
Yeah. At
some point, you just need to gradually upgrade. You can't just flit all the time. But we've started using it in different ways. Obviously, you guys are very into that, and I'm sure at some point I'm going to pick your brain on that. But we're very open to using it, because we can see the way it what's the word? It adds to what we do. It doesn't replace what we do. It just helps us do more of the heavy lifting, so that we can provide a better value service to our clients. But yeah, I'm not a tech guy, so there's all these things coming out. I think, well, that is amazing, but I have no idea who to go to, what to use, or how to create it, or what company. It's an absolute minefield.
Do you think within the broker community, actually, there's an opportunity to kind of steal a march by becoming a bit more tech savvy? And do you think that maybe as part of your kind of almost CPD, brokers should need to invest more time into their own personal development, in learning more about the tech, because I guess it's going to become an increasingly pivotal part of their businesses and their lives? Yeah,
look, if you don't embrace the tech that's there now, you're going to be left behind. I'm a firm believer in that. You can at least embrace it to go with the tide of where it's going. Look, there are going to be huge elements of the broker market. Bearing in mind, we do every type that will be replaced, and that will be the simple ones. So you've got to upskill constantly on some of the more nuanced, some of the more complex. But yeah, we're always telling the guys to try new things. They don't know this yet, but I'm going to push out to the guys. There's a government-led scheme called AI Skills Hub.
Right. Okay.
It's free. I think that's a wonderful initiative. Probably the only one that's come out of this government. I think. Do you know what? I think on the last time I was on this, loads of this was cut out because we were too political.
Oh, I think. I think we've learned our lesson now. Yeah,
political. But I do think that's a great initiative. Anything that's free that actually adds value is wonderful, especially in an area that is to most people. This kind of mystic area of, you can get AI to do anything. Well, okay, that's great, but how do we actually get AI to do anything? But yeah, in short, yes, we very much are open and looking to every ways to make our processes more slick and user friendly, and ultimately that means that we can spend more time with the client. Yeah,
well, I think that's the key thing, isn't it? Like the more time you have to spend, punching numbers into spreadsheets or bashing out emails, is less time that you could be spending with your clients.
Yeah.
But also like doing things that you like and love,
Well, exactly. And the industry is stressful enough as it is.
Yeah.
That on Friday I went for a swim, which I've not done in probably 15 years, in terms of just going to a pool on my own and swimming. Because it just gets, if you have that roll of deals that are problematic or stressful, that can build up very fast.
Do you think there's a mental health crisis within the broker community, and do you think it's talked about enough?
No, and I do see that there's a few initiatives in the industry, but I think we all need to be responsible for it. I'm not going to go. I'm going to try and find something that's mental health related. We as business owners need to be very mindful of our staff. It starts at home. We can't just we'll link into that initiative. Well, no, I'd love to hear about the initiative to come up with ideas, but we all have to take responsibility for it. Not just as business owners, because we need to look after our own mental health, but also our staff as well, because it can be, very, very intense.
Yeah,
because there's a lot of money at stake, and by default that's a lot of emotionally charged conversations, and it can get very tense.
Well, I think there's another component to it, which is that as if you're not broking, you're not earning, right? So if you're not doing deals, you're not earning, and so that hamster wheel and that constant pressure is and as a business owner as well, it's not, you've got to pay people's salaries, you've got to keep the lights on, and it's not just you're not just responsible for your own family, you're also responsible for your team, right? And that is and that's not exclusive to you. That is clearly a pressure that is faced by brokers up and down the country.
Yeah, agreed. And that's why it's so important to take stock of that. You lose effectiveness over time in terms of, I've got like my business partner will quite often work till late at night, and it's like, well, you're now exponentially losing effectiveness each hour that goes on into the night, because you just run ragged.
Yeah, and then you I've been there. You stay up late, you work until 11, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, and then you're operating on a few hours of sleep, and then the next day your output is, I might say garbage, but it's not great. Yeah,
it can snowball. It can massively snowball, and that's in part a large reason why I gave up drinking, which was a year ago on Saturday.
Oh, congratulations!
Thank you, because it can just get too much, and I think it's all too easy to have these blowouts constantly, alcohol-wise, to deal with the stress. But personally, and this isn't obviously directed at anyone. Personally, I just felt felt that I'd be better equipped if I wasn't, using alcohol as a reason to kind of have these blowouts. I'd much more focused, having that mental fog's gone.
I have to say, sort of, you're not alone. People of, I suppose, of our generation in reassessing relationship with alcohol in particular. I've not followed you. I wouldn't say I've followed in your footsteps in that regard. I still have the occasional drink, but I think the relationship that people have with alcohol is evolving. I was actually had just spoke to Adam Butler, our director of sales and marketing, in a previous recording, and we were talking about how it's becoming increasingly difficult for BDMs to get appointments with brokers and go and see them out on the road because of that. The change in work-life balance, but also secondly because people are more health conscious, and and I think this is not a bad thing, right? I think that there is I think that the days gone by of days gone by when you had to, you could only do business with someone because you drank 10 pints with them and down the pub, and then committed 100 hate crimes in a curry house thereafter. There's no. I think we can all agree that we don't have to do that, and there are better ways to do it. Probably going. One of those ways may be go for a round of golf or paying for an overpriced paddle session or something like that. But
yeah, look,
I think it's good. No, it's good to have different options.
And do you know what? If you're also doing something healthy at the same time, then that's great. Interesting. You mentioned BDMs. So this year has already been I've been every other day. I'm doing a BDM meeting. I had 9 2 weeks ago, 5 last week. But because we do every type of property finance, you're juggling all of those lenders in each of those sectors. But if it was, let's face it, you could go to the pub with someone, get drunk that night, you'll have a great time. And I'm sure at some point you'll do some business, but something like golf or paddle or whatever, you still spend quite a bit of time with them. Yeah. And it's enjoyable. But I am trying to find that balance of, not going to the pub. Like, I don't do that anymore, which is very alien to me because, I started back in 2007, same firm as Andrew Robinson, and our director at the time would say, look, it's lunchtime, everyone go to the pub, don't come back without a client. And that was 5 days a week. You'd be in every single day. Whereas now with hybrid living, hybrid working rather, all this health conscious stuff, the mental health stuff, we are poles apart from where we were 19 years ago, so far, but in a good way. Yeah. But it does become, I totally appreciate that it's harder for BDMs to get in front of brokers in a meaningful way. Yeah. Not just, coffee, 20 minutes, try and remember my face from all the other BDMs you've seen that day. It is hard. Well,
the thing is that your ability to add value as a broker, as far as the lender is concerned, is ultimately predicated by the depth of relationship that you have with either the sales directors or the BDMs at the lenders that you're working with, and that ultimately requires an investment of time. So I suppose are there downsides to are there sort of downsides to, not so much to not drinking, but if you're not investing the time, if brokers aren't investing the time with lenders, do they lose out as well? And it doesn't have to be in a pub setting, but do you think that it is important that you replace that interactive space one way or the other, so that you're still maintaining that face time?
Yeah, look, as a lender you have to be, because otherwise you are going to get forgotten about, especially in the bridging space, just because that's the most saturated part of the market. It is very hard for a lender to kind of differentiate themselves from the crowd, apart from ones that have existing relationships, but those relationships have to start somewhere, right? As a broker, it's absolutely essential that we see BDMs constantly, because there's new products coming out, there's different ways of structuring stuff, there's that light bulb moment of a deal that they've funded that you think, oh wow, I didn't know you did that, I've got something exactly like that on my desk or something similar, which would never come from the dozens of emails you get each day that none of us read.
Or a Teams call for that.
Or a Teams call. Yeah, the face-to-face is important. But at the same time, certainly from my point of view, when you do every type of finance, it's a marathon sometimes. And it's you know, if you're one of those BDMs late in the afternoon, you're like, I'm like running on fumes right now. But it's a weird one because you like, you know, you book up the diary in advance. You're like, well, do you know, I've spread it out during the week.
Yeah.
Then when that week comes, you regret doing that because you're like, well, I should have done it in one day. And then you have that one day. Why am I doing it in one day? You can't win. There's too many.
Yeah, I know what that's like because we've gone. It's a bit like my podcast, the podcast recordings. We went from doing one recording a week, to having a block session of recordings, and then you know you can never win, right?
No, you can't.
You can never.
And
win.
it's like as I was saying to one of my team in their one-to-one, so you've got to do these BDM meetings because it's like being an athlete, and my name and athleticism does not necessarily go in the same sentence. But you are a broker. You need to be able to broke, and the only way you're going to do that to the best possible standard is by learning something all the time.
Yeah.
Constant. We all know how to broke, but can you do it well? Can you add value? Only way you can do that is to learn what all of these lenders do.
Well, I think as a sort of as a bit of an aside, but kind of a bit of a tangent, but stick with me here.
Here we go.
But I think it's. I actually think that there's, I think the hospitality industry is already having a pretty ragged time as it goes.
Yep.
And then you've got this sort of health consciousness of particularly the generations after ours, not being so keen on drinking, and then you've got us. You've got people of our age now, sort of either not drinking or in my case, cutting back a lot.
Yeah.
And then just to sort of put the final nail in the coffin. So my wife went out for dinner with some friends of hers Friday night, school mums for my eldest year. Now, ordinarily, my wife going out on a Friday night with this group of girls, she's going to come home after midnight, 3 sheets to the wind, all the rest of it. It's 10:45. I hear the keys rattling. I'm watching Stranger Things or whatever with my oldest, and she arrives home, and I'm like, I was like, you're back early. He's like, oh yeah, well, so and so's, so and so, they're both on the Manjaro, so they're not drinking very much, and they weren't eating very much, so I had a couple of drinks, and that was that. And you go, all right, well, that's cool. Well, you're going to feel great tomorrow, so that's good. That's a win. But on the flip side, you've got to think for that hospitality business, like, that's probably an extra 200 quid from that table that they would have otherwise got.
And then you lump in business rates, and it's a perfect storm.
Minimum wage and national
people
insurance. Spending
less money and taxes going up. Yeah, not a good.
Anyway, so I just thought, well, that was I was like, and it was just a realization that hit me on the Saturday morning. I was like, God, this is really bad. This is genuinely really bad, but because sorry, we're really going off a tangent now, so we've probably lost our audience. But if you're still with us, then thank you. But they had a lot of companies about a year ago. Their stock prices just fell off a cliff because because investors were worried about the impact of their sales from people, jabbing themselves and all the rest of it, and. Anyway, I think they all recovered, or everyone sort of just have had collective amnesia since then. But you think actually there is something to that, which is that like McDonald's, if a quarter of all Americans are on some sort of weight loss jabs, McDonald's are going to have a tough time. I think there's
a lot of obviously unintended consequences of things like that. I did see they wiped their vegan menu.
Have they?
But bar the burger, that was it.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting.
I don't know why. I wasn't interested in reading up much more. But,
no.
You're a busy man. It might not even be true. That was just a headline and some clickbait, and it's not actually true. Who knows?
What's if we just sort of go back to business, as it were? What do you think's been sort of the evolution of broking over the last 5 or 6 years since COVID, and what do you think that? Maybe with one eye on the technology, what do you see as what do you think the future of broking looks like over the next 4 or 5 years? You know, like if you really boil it down.
Look, face to face is back. There's a lot more people in the office, and those personal relationships really are, the be all and end all. That's something that tech can't replicate.
Yeah,
they can't. Tech at the moment can't replicate emotional intelligence, and that is what a lot of our clients want. They want us to be on that journey with them. And the same with lenders. As we said earlier, tech can do the heavy lifting, but the value is really in that interpersonal relationship.
Yeah,
someone that they can speak to. You call a lot of businesses nowadays, and it sounds like a human, but it isn't. But you know that it isn't. It sounds nice, but I don't have that kind of warmth that I do from speaking to someone who can help me. And I think that certainly we're going more. Brokers need to adapt to the complex. They can't just be doing the simple stuff, and that will be the first to go. So you need to learn, adapt, and just constantly upskill. You have to,
because I guess if you look at the regulated side of your business, and you obviously talk about CRMs and the tech, that will most likely be the first thing.
Yeah, agreed.
Where how do you differentiate yourself from another broker on the regulated stuff, for particularly the straightforward bread and butter run of the mill stuff? That's going to become increasingly difficult.
Yeah, look, as good as tech goes, there's going to be a lot of people that don't trust it, especially when it's such a big thing. Buying a house, spending sometimes hundreds of thousands of pounds. Do you want to chuck that into a system and hope for the best?
Yeah.
No, it's one of if not the most expensive thing they'll ever do in their life. So do they want to roll the dice with a bit of tech? Look, I think remortgages will be one of the first things to go, because it's already there. They haven't got to go through the pain of buying something. But yeah, it's.
But I suppose you must be seeing the benefits on the lender side on the regulated lending.
Yeah, much faster.
The ability to get an offer and to get mortgage offers very fast now.
There's some lenders
lightning, but very almost instant.
There's some that I can't for the life of me remember what lender it was. Their record was, I think, 19 seconds to get an offer.
I mean, let's be honest, that's going to be hard to beat.
But then that that's no different to what we had in 2007 for different reasons. But the tech was there. You'd put it through, cross your fingers, and hope that there'd be an offer.
Yeah.
And once that screen refreshed, we had that in 2007. We have that now. But there's all the tech is there to do open banking, verify income, all in the blink of an eye. And there's again all that heavy lifting of underwriting things. Underwriting also, I think, is a dare I say it, a species that is at risk. Certainly in the more conventional spaces. I think where it comes to things like development and some of the more complex types of lending, that's a while away, because there's no black and white book. You're operating in a grey area, whereas if it is by the book, computer says no, a lot of that underwriting is taken away from individuals and just done by tech.
This episode was sponsored by Avamore Capital. Ground up development, refurbishment, part completed projects, fast bridging. Avamore Capital backs you through every stage. Direct access to experts who understand your timeline and pressures. Fast decisions, clear communication, no shuffling between departments or re-explaining your deal. From foundations to exit, Avamore delivers the expertise and funding solutions to keep projects moving. Visit avamorecapital.com. Yeah, I mean, if I was, to sort of blow our own trumpets here, I think that the key thing here is it's tech enabled. It's about being tech enabled or tech assisted.
Yeah.
It's that kind of man and machine in harmony rather than
replacing.
Yeah. Because I think the difficulty, as you get more complex, you end up with more edge cases. And, it's an interesting one, because I think from a business perspective, you can work on it in two ways, which is there is an argument to say, well, actually, I don't mind if I lose the edge cases because, I'm just saying plain devil's advocate. It isn't what we do, but there is an argument for saying, look, I don't mind if I lose the edge cases. And you can think, if you think about your lender panel, you even think about on the bridging side, right? The bridging side, which I know you do a lot of. There's a reason why I think a lot of lenders don't do complex or don't do the overly complex, or once that hair or wart is exposed, they just go, yeah, not for us, thanks very much. And a lot of it boils down to efficiency. Yeah, is that they're just thinking, look, I start to become inefficient the minute I have to start engaging grey cells.
Agreed.
And if I have to start engaging grey cells, that means your and your client's experience becomes dulled, and I don't want my brand to be harmed by that perception. Yeah. And so as a consequence of that, they just go, yeah, no, thanks, we'll move on.
Yeah, but certainly in bridging, the cheaper it is, that usually it has to be extremely vanilla. Yeah. So as soon as it isn't, it's going to be very, very challenging to go through, and those list of underwriting questions will be vast. But as you say, if you've got a vanilla case that doesn't touch the sides, you've got AVM and dual rep, that can be done very quickly. But as soon as it gets complex, but then you've got lenders that vying for market share. They have to look at complex because that's the only way they're going to get money out the door. If it was too simple, they'd go to one of the larger incumbents that's probably a third cheaper than you. Yeah. That's very hard to compete with.
I've always said that for us to even get a look in at a deal, we've got to be within 50 basis points, or 50 to 75 basis points across a 12-month period for a broker to be able to justify using us. Otherwise, there's just unless it's so niche or so unusual that we're the only game in town for it, which I'm not going to say it never happens, but it's rare. It's fairly rare.
You've got some niches yourselves as lenders, so. But
I think you have to.
You have to have a niche. Well,
I think the certainties you have as a lender are you'll never be the cheapest. Mm-hmm. Well, someone can always go cheaper.
Someone's always got a bigger boat, right?
Yeah, exactly. And someone can always lend more than you, right? Yeah. Like someone can always drop their drawers in terms of principles more than you will. Like however flexible you think you are on the credit side, there's always someone who's going to be willing to have fewer morals, shall we say? Right,
but this also comes down to relationships again. If I have two sets of terms and they were on parity, or the other one that I've not used or don't like is slightly cheaper, I'm going to be talking to my client about the other one because I don't trust that one. And there's a reason I don't like it. It's because I've had a bad experience, or they treat customers or brokers badly, or I'm not going to get a warm feeling from using that route. Yeah. And to be fair, the client's always going to be guided by what we say because we're the experts. We know the path of least resistance or the one that will actually deliver on what they say. So having those relationships can make a huge difference on bridging that gap of that 0.5% you mentioned on where it's going to go.
Well, I think there's a key difference as well when it comes to what more specialist lending. Look, don't get me wrong. Like, I think buy-to-let does feature in specialists, but I suppose that's, should we say, complex buy-to-let. But what I'm really talking about here is bridging and development lending. I think that it's important to remember that that not to get too hung up on price. If I was doing your job, for example, right, and people will say, "Well, it's convenient for you to say this," but the logic dictates that you're only in that lending relationship for 12, 18 months, maximum 2 years, right? And in a case of a development loan, a lot of the time, most of the development is drawn on the drip as a project goes on. So even if you are 50 basis points per annum more expensive, the net effect is probably only 25 basis points.
Well, yeah, the blended rate is a lot better.
And so you have to think beyond rate, or
Agreed.
because ultimately there's so many more factors. If I'm financing your development project, I'm kind of like a partner in your project, and I'm part of your project team. I say but we are.
It's deliverability and trust ultimately. And as you rightly say, you're part of that team, but in the development space specifically, I always say to my developers that you lean on them for their expertise. They're there to help. They're not there to be someone that you only speak to on drawdown at the end, and they hope that that a day into default they're going to send in a receiver.
Yeah,
you need to be talking to them, especially when the shit hits the fan, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think you've seen it on the other side where we've had to draft you in to help a client out, help a client to get out of the facility as well. Yeah. Which is that it's the easiest thing to do as a lender the minute someone goes into default is to go and call up the receiver, but the net outcome, especially if the project's say unfinished, no one wins in that situation. Like the client will not win in that situation, and actually a lot of the time as a lender you're not going to win, especially in the current market environment. It's too tricky. It's too tricky in that case, isn't it? Yeah. So, but certainly I think having seen it firsthand, your willingness as a broker to stay involved with a client in the case to help them get out is absolutely crucial and adds a lot of value, and not something that we see from every broker.
I think, look, there's personally, I'm glad that I do every type of property finance because I can see a lot more angles than someone that just does development or just does bridging, because you understand the whole life cycle of that property finance piece. Yeah. Especially, exits, for instance, is quite a key part. But I understand what properties are going to be favourable or not, the numbers, etc. But there's very rare situations where someone can't get out of a loan, bar sale, obviously, if they want to keep the asset. Obviously, there's circumstances where you are quite literally the last person they've spoken to, and every avenue has been explored. But that is incredibly rare.
And what do you think about all these new market entrants coming into into both the bridge and the development space? Lenders maybe who are doing much bigger tickets now, kind of coming in a bit more into this more granular space. What's your approach to when they come into the market? What's your view of them? What's your approach as far as they're concerned?
That's the thing. There's so many. It's saturated. So when you see a new lender, you're like, right, okay, what? Unless there's a real USP that jumps out, it might be someone that you speak to if you're struggling to place a deal. Yeah. Because you've gone through your first tier that you use all the time, the second tier that you use occasionally, but for one reason or another you don't use all the time, then the third tier you've never used before. And that's really on the ones that are really challenging to lend on, because the new entrants tend to take the most risks. Yes. Because they need to grab the market share. They're not they need to get money out the door. So they do tend to take on riskier deals. So I'm not saying that that's necessarily a good thing, because sometimes you've got deals that are like, just don't do this deal. Yeah. You are absolutely crazy contemplating
the proverbial bottom drawer deal, right?
But but the only time that you think, well, I need to find a solution is if they own the asset already. Yeah. And they're on, I don't know, bridging finance that needs to be rebridged or a term loan solution. Well, we have to find a lender that will take the risk, because otherwise the alternative is a lot worse. Yeah. But if it's someone buying something that's crazy, you tell them it's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. You try and
you can see their future, and that will involve some very expensive finance.
But you talked about trust, not trusting, or being wary about lenders. I mean, how do you, if you've got lenders that are putting out very cheap, quite high leverage terms, how do you feel about that kind of lender when you've seen from your own experience that those lenders might not be in business in 18, 24 months from now, or they're sort of they're sinning in haste and they're repenting at leisure, and they might be a bit more aggressive in their collection practices to mask or to recover the mistakes that they made? Well,
there's two factors there. Who are the funding lines? That kind of gives you an insight as to if they've got certain funding lines, the caliber of the people behind it, so you get a bit of comfort there. If they're funding lines you've never heard of, or Monaco Dave, who's just sold a tech company, who's got money to lend, then you are a little bit more cautious. And also the people who at the funder, the lender, Do you know them? Do you talk to other brokers about their experiences? You do kick the tires. You have to. So if you're using someone you've never heard of, never seen them in the industry before, which, let's face it, it's a small industry. I've been in it a long time now. You know, a vast majority of people never heard of them, don't know the funding lines. I'll let other brokers try that path first till they're a bit more established.
We saw a little bit of consolidation in the lending space last year in terms of a bit of M&A activity.
Yeah,
we've recently seen some lenders go into administration. I know this is not everyone shares this view, but do you think that would you welcome a bit of rationalisation, a bit more consolidation on the lender side, maybe a few fewer lenders without compromising too much on client choice?
Yeah, because it will make my meeting schedule a lot easier for BDMs. That's my first thought, is it will save me time. I think there's a lot of scope and opportunity for people to do that. I've spoken to owners of bridging lenders that they are definitely open to it. Why not? They've built up amazing brands, and yeah, like at some point, like in any business, irrespective of industry, that has to be a thought, right? Yeah,
I mean, look, at the end of the day, the market isn't that big. We've got. I mean, no one really. I don't think anyone really knows how big the space is, but you've got the BDLA saying it's a 14 billion market. I suppose if you include development in that, probably, but that's then excludes all the high street and all the rest.
Excludes the ones who aren't signed up to sharing that information as well. So
I've always been of the view it's about, if you combine all the development that goes on and the bridging, it's probably about a 25 billion market, but 80% of that is dominated by less than 10% of the lenders, I'd say.
Yeah.
It stands to reason that it would make sense for a number of mid-sized players to kind of club together or get together and become a bit more dominant. Because when you've got that dominance, you've kind of got that. You've got a bit more leverage with institutional funders if you can say, right, I can deliver you $1 billion, rather than I can deliver you 50 million.
And there are so many types of businesses that would work very well together. There's a lot of synergy in types of lend that they do. So I think there's a lot of opportunity in that space, and obviously we've seen some already. Yeah, we will see more.
I think we will. I mean, it's a bit, but I guess some of the suggestions that I've heard. And we've even had we've even had people talking about it on the podcast as well, is that the age ranges of the founders of a lot of those businesses being of a similar age to ourselves, is that maybe they're not ready, they're still a bit too young to be sort of making that leap, whereas now we've started to see that increasingly happen on the broker side, where I suppose some of the owners of some of the larger brokers or packages, being the other side of 50, shall we say, maybe being a bit more open to it, the right stage in life to take a bit of a check, have a bit of an earn out, and then pop off to Spain in 4 or 5 years.
There's a lot of people that are just, to put it plainly, tired.
Yeah,
it's doing it for a long time. You do get very tired.
Well, it's a hamster wheel, isn't it? Right.
Yeah, and you've seen some crazy numbers but on both scales, crazy low and crazy high. It depends on where you are in your life. Sometimes you can time the market well or find the right buyer, but sometimes you can not get the price that you want. I don't know what we'll do as a business. We haven't decided.
How are you finding like growing headcount, and the fact that you're still having BDM meetings suggests to me that you're still working in the business you're working in the business as much as you're working on it. So is that something you're looking to sort of rebalance, shall we say? And do you need to hire a few more heads to kind of make that a reality?
Yeah, look, I do a lot less resi and buy to let, but I still do it for a whole host of reasons. But it's also nice to keep your kind of finger on the pulse.
Yeah, nose to the ground.
Yeah, I can be, just because of the team, right? There's 10 of us now, so I can be a lot more selective on what deals I take forward and what ones I don't. And there's some clients that I have had for nearly 20 years that I just like dealing with them. It's no pressure, it's no stress. It's just nice to get at that opportune time to catch up with them. But it also means that I can specialise more on the bridging development commercial, which is where I get a lot more thrill, albeit somewhat more stress. But we are looking for more, but we're always looking for more people, but the right people. We're not a bums on seat brokerage. Has to be the right people. I think the structured side, we have to have more people, because at the moment it's myself and partly one of the other guys, but mainly me. And as a viable business, it can't just be me. It needs more people.
Are you looking to take people on horizontally, or people with experience, or would you be open to taking on graduates or school leavers who you can train up and sort of teach them the Adam Stiles way?
I at the moment probably more experience, just because of time.
Yeah,
we're spread so thinly, and as you said earlier, we're working on the business, in the business. We're wearing a lot of hats at the moment. I've got a young family. We've got 10 guys on every type of property finance. We're trying to grow the business, recruit, marketing. It's a lot. So to then add on someone that's never been a broker before and never been in the industry, that would be that's a large time commitment. It's definitely something that we want to do in the future, because there's not enough young people in the industry. And despite all the things that we've been saying about stress and mental health, it's an extremely rewarding and friendly industry. There's some wonderful, wonderful people in it. I think it's a great career path for many, but it is a certain personality type.
I certainly wouldn't put my kids off. If my kids don't, let's say my kids don't want to go to university, or they, that they're not sure what to do, I would say to them, look, go and do your CMAP, go and do your CMAP, go and do a couple of years in a mortgage, in a commercial finance brokerage or a mortgage brokerage. You'll learn a lot about the world. You'll meet a lot of people, and if you want to do something else after that, that's fine.
It's the lowest barrier to entry. And you only get out what you put in. And that's never truer than a self-employed broker who lives and dies by their own deals. There's lots of brokerages that we employ and self-employ, but it's reward. You only get out what you can do. I was 23 when I started, and that was it was sink or swim. But that kind of made me as a person, right?
Yeah, no, I agree. But do you think that? One of the reasons why it will continue to be difficult to retain younger or more junior staff is that ultimately, with the technology that's going to become increasingly prevalent, the value that will be applied to advice and experience become over-indexed, and so almost the younger. Putting younger people in front of clients, you'll be more, broker owners will be more reluctant to do that. Do you think? Yeah,
look, that's naturally going to be a challenge if it goes that way and quickly. But there's still years that people can, they've got before. I think that becomes a real problem.
Yeah. In terms of what your clients is, we obviously talked about. Reluctance on the part of clients, but are there any areas where your clients are actually really excited about and enthusiastic about and really, really wanting to do? I mean, obviously you mentioned the increase in development, but, are there any other areas, say, in the commercial sector, or, people chasing after retail, or,
there's many, many businesses that want to own their own asset. There's obviously people buying it in their SIPs and SASs and things like that. But commercial is the most underserved part of the market, and very popular now, where there's people that just don't want to do buy-to-let anymore. That it's too much red tape, the margins aren't there, so they're looking at commercial. I think that's a really exciting space that you can really get your teeth into. There's many commercial opportunities that involve development as well, so there's loads of ways of skinning that value. And to be fair, I've spoken to a lot of people in the holiday sector. Weirdly enough, I know it's not the most popular, but there's a lot of that out there in this country.
Yes, there's still holiday let opportunities.
And of various scales. That we've been dealing with one that's in excess of 1,000 units.
Wow.
Actual, basically a village.
Wow. as a development or something that's already standing?
Quasi.
Right. Okay.
Quasi, very, very convoluted, that one. But then you've got others that just don't, they can see the benefit in the short term lets, and they enjoy it. But sometimes as a broker you get, bust deals, which, you get this weird one out of nowhere, then 2 weeks later something almost identical.
Wow. Okay.
It happens, but that's, the coincidence of life sometimes, isn't it?
Well, I suppose once you got your head around that first one, the second one, but you kind of had the game plan, don't you?
You've manifested it.
I think that's true.
Which also works with shit deals as well. You manifest those.
Oh yeah. but it's almost a bit like. Sorry, I'm going a bit weird. I'm going to go a bit of a tangent here, but do you? It's. If you ever want to sort of pull at that thread that we're living in a simulation, what you just said gives me it's like an example of that, right? Which is that it's like that glitch in the system, and they gave you that one deal, and the system's giving you that another deal. It's a bit like there are certain there's certain models of car, and you don't see one for like it feels like a year, and then in the space of like 3 hours, you see 3 of the same one, and you go, "What?"
Yeah, but there's a psychological term for that, isn't there?
Oh, it's like because you're actually looking for it.
Yeah. But there's sometimes you do question why something's happened.
Yeah.
Whether there indeed has been a glitch.
Yeah. It's like God. Yeah, it's like we are literally living in the Matrix. But I think, I think someone. Who knows? We don't. I guess we'll find out. We'll find out at the end of days. But that's quite funny. But is there anything you're quite excited about this year, or for this year, for 2026? What is it that sort of is getting the juices going for you?
I think on the tech side is really exploring the ways it can complement what we do.
Yeah.
That for me is exciting, because if anything that makes my life easier, I'm really interested in knowing about. And if it means that my guys are more efficient, like the same input but double the output, like that's exciting.
Yeah.
Where that will come from in terms of an industry and what sector's going to do better, who the hell knows?
Yeah.
But the only things we can do is control what we've got within our ecosystem, and that is one of them.
Yeah. And in terms of like what, if, sort of start to wind things down, but is there anything that you that you would want to get to our audience, tell us, anything you're particularly looking for right now, or anything you particularly want to people to pick up the phone to you and talk to you about?
Oh, that's a good question. Considering we do all types of property finance, it's quite wide, but something specific. Look, we're doing a lot in the non-reg space. We're doing a lot of bridging and development. Those are the ones that interest me the most. Yeah. So from an interest point of view, those would be the ones that I'd be most inclined to say we'd like to see. But we can help anyone from in any background circumstance, just because of the wide ranging skill set that we have in the business. So if it is more complex than the other brokerages might see, we welcome those with open arms.
Yeah, well, you've obviously got that breadth of offering. What's the most interesting case you've got on your desk right now? Would it be that 1,000 unit?
No, and actually, it's. I know this is going to sound a bit sick. If I said what it was, you'd know what it was. So I can't really talk about it.
Okay,
that is the most interesting. It's so niche that the lender only found 2 values in the country that would...
As in the asset class itself? Yeah. Really? Okay.
Yeah, very, very obscure. But I spent a year on that, and we managed to get an offer. But again, that goes to how hard
is that a regulated case, or is it
no, not non-reg?
Yeah.
But that goes to what we do. That's a year of I've not taken any payment at all. We need to see that through to completion.
So it's
before I get
such a niche
paid.
asset class yeah. It's funny because I had a phone call from a uni mate on Friday, and he was asking me about, I've got this deal, and it was like he wanted to buy a retail unit, and he's got a he's got an agreement in place with some bar operator, on a 15-year lease, and it's going to obviously increase the value of the asset quite a bit. And but he also doesn't have any money to put into it. I was like, okay, fine. And then he's like, oh yeah, and I also want to put some solar panels on, take a 25-year lease on some land and put some solar panels on it, and I haven't got. It's going to cost 5 million quid to do it, and I haven't got 5 million quid, and how am I going to do that? I was like, I said, well, funny enough, that's not that difficult actually. Definitely a lot easier than it sounds a lot easier than what the case that's on your desk right now.
Horses for courses.
Horses for courses. Yeah. So this particular one, would that be the most challenging case you'd ever had to ever had to place?
No,
what would be that? What was?
Probably one that I was up against some brokers, that household name brokers,
right?
You can imagine what sorts of names, and we had you get a sense for something that is bankable. You know that the deal has legs, but it's not going to be from everyone. This deal had. We found 60 lenders that those two brokers had never been to, and of those 60 lenders, bear in mind they'd already gone to the whole of the market. But missed these other 60 lenders. Only 2 of those 60 would look at lending on it. So we spend a lot of time. Like we like to think that subject to evaluation and to a degree credit, but we check credit anyway, the deal's going to go through. So 90% of what we do is done up front. And that's before we've taken any money from anyone or earned any money ourselves. But, a lot of there has to be trust between you and the client that they're going to be loyal. I mean, on this one, it came to us because it was through an introducer anyway. So we've got a good relationship with them, and they had a good relationship with the client. But that was probably one. But then we've got many deals that we speak to 50, 60, 70 lenders on, because it's so obscure that. But that there's someone will do it.
Yeah.
There will be someone that will do that deal because it's it's a good borrower or it's a good loan to value, even though everything else about it's really bad. You just know that someone will, but it's that perseverance, isn't it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, closing tradition, we obviously normally ask you about advice you'd give to your younger self, but we've already done that. So I wanted to go in a different direction. I'm going to steal the closing question from Trigonometry. What's the one thing in specialist finance right now that we're not talking about and should be?
Wow, that's put me on the spot, hasn't it? To put no, there is some, and I'm not to put too fine a point on it. There is some shithousery in every type of property finance, from your big names to your small names, and everyone. I think that just some people need to take a step back and work out whether what they're doing is right and fair.
Okay.
Just some people need to take a bit of a look in the mirror.
Okay. What can you expand on that? What by what you mean?
I mean, without going into, I'm not going to go too specific, but there's some lenders giving one rule for one rule for one rule for others. There's lenders that are just not doing the right thing at all. It's very short-sighted. It's not in the spirit of helping. I'm being very vague here.
You are being quite vague, but that's fine. But I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
and that's by and large, 99% of lenders are very fair, but there's some that just give a bad name to the rest.
Yeah,
and I think there's some that just need to take a long, hard look at themselves.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think ultimately we have the benefit of a very good ecosystem that is largely left alone by government and regulators, and if we want it to stay that way,
just do the right thing.
Yeah, we need to do the right thing.
Just do the right thing.
Yeah. All right, Adam.
Suitably vague for you.
Oh no,
suitably
that's
vague.
fine. That's fine.
When you put someone on the spot, I have to come up with something.
Well, Adam, listen, it's been great having you on.
Thanks so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Third time was definitely a charm. Where can people reach out and get hold of you and find you? And
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn's
mainly.
the best. Yeah.
Adam Stiles. Stiles with an I.
Yeah.
Reach out there on there or through either business, Helix Financial Partners or Helix Structured Finance.
Brilliant. And of course, I've been Michael Dean, your host, and you can find me on the internet at property_funder. Thanks as always to Avamore Capital for the continued support. Thanks to Matt for helping out on the technical side, to Davina, our producer, and to Versta, our editor, and his team. We'll talk to you again on the next one. Thanks and bye-bye.